Where is your concern level at this point regarding David Pecker's testimony and Michael Cohen's testimony?
Well, Michael Cohen is a convicted liar, and he's got no credibility whatsoever. He was a lawyer, and you rely on your lawyers, but Michael Cohen was a convicted liar. He was a lawyer for many people, not just me.
Are you prepared to take the stand if it comes down to it?
Oh, sure, I'd very willingly take the stand. Right now, if you look at what the legal scholars are saying, and as I said, Jonathan Turley, McCarthy, Dershowitz last night, they say there's no case. There is no case. They brought a case that doesn't exist. And they're right. Other than we have a very conflicted judge. The judge is highly conflicted. He should recuse himself immediately. There's never been a judge so conflicted as this guy. He should absolutely recuse himself immediately. That's all they have. They have a good judge for them. But other than that, they have no case.
Whoops. Want to know why that's particularly bad? Because just before this little clip aired on TV in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's lawyers attended a show cause hearing in Manhattan, pleading with the judge in his criminal trial as to why Trump hadn't violated his gag order, which, to be clear, he did 10 times. Trump's lawyer Todd Blanche went so far as to suggest that Trump was making a good faith effort at complying with his gag order. He said, "We are trying to comply with it. There is no doubt that Trump is being very careful with your honor's order." And that was so nakedly false that Merchan said, "You are losing all credibility with the court. I have to tell you that right now." Meaning Blanche was already on thin ice. Cut to, Trump was on TV that same day, violating it yet again. If Blanche hadn't lost all credibility with the court before, he certainly has now. And before Trump yet again claims that this isn't a violation, take a look at what the gag order actually states. That Trump is prohibited from, quote, making or directing others to make public statements about known or reasonably foreseeable witnesses concerning their potential participation in the investigation or in the criminal proceeding. Clearly, Michael Cohen will be a witness in this trial, and clearly, Trump's statement here was public. Now, yes, the attacks against him are intended to intimidate Michael Cohen, and no one is more intimately familiar with those intimidation tactics than Cohen himself, who worked for Trump as his own personal lawyer and fixer for years, but they are also intended to intimidate other witnesses and members of the jury. They're intended to show those people what awaits them if they end up on the wrong side of Donald Trump. And so when the inevitable army of Trump minions descends onto Michael Cohen, from Fox News all the way down to his little foot soldiers on social media, that's also intended to serve as a warning shot to the next Michael Cohen, whoever that may be. Now, it's also worth noting that this isn't anywhere close to Trump's first violation of his gag order. This is his 11th. Just last week, for example, Trump took to Truth Social writing, "Has Mark Pomerantz been prosecuted for his terrible acts in and out of the DA's office? Has disgraced attorney and felon Michael Cohen been prosecuted for lying? Only Trump people get prosecuted by this judge and these thugs. A dark day for our country." To which Cohen replied, appropriately, "When does enough become enough and the petulant man-child get time out and lockup for his bad behavior?" And frankly, Michael Cohen's right. We are already long past the point where Trump's behavior should have resulted in lockup. Add that to the fact that not only is Trump intimidating witnesses, he's also intimidating members of the jury. Trump had taken to Truth Social, writing, "They are catching undercover liberal activists lying to the judge in order to get on the Trump jury." And of course, Donald Trump's mouthpiece has already understood the assignment, which is why this was spewed on Fox News.
A nurse from the Upper East Side with a master's degree. She's not married, has no kids, and lives with her fiancé, who works in finance. She gets her news from the New York Times, Google, and CNN. She said two things that really stuck out. One, quote, "I don't really have an opinion of Trump," and, quote, "No one is above the law." I'm not so sure about juror number 2.
And lo and behold, the following day, that very juror, juror number 2, an oncology nurse, would ultimately drop out for fear of being identified. All because Jesse Waters and Trump didn't like that she said no one is above the law. In other words, the right has become so radicalized, so extreme, that something so banal as saying no one is above the law in the United States of America is now a threat to the autocratic rule that Donald Trump and his minions want for this country. But sure, party of law and order. Got it. I'd argue that the damage is already done here as well. Frankly, think about the practical effect of this whole campaign by Jesse Waters and Donald Trump and everybody else on Trump's side. Now, Jesse Waters' audience, and of course Donald Trump's audience, are going to believe that anyone who's on the jury is nothing more than a liberal activist who is able to fool prosecutors in getting themselves seated. Which means they now become targets for Trump supporters' vitriol. The same vitriol that ruined the lives of Georgia election workers Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. The same vitriol that caused thousands of Trump supporters to storm the Capitol and destroy it on January 6th. The dangers posed by these people isn't theoretical, it is real, and it has ruined the lives of countless people, and these jurors are not blind to the reality of that danger. So when Donald Trump takes to local news networks and Truth Social and his little post-trial press conferences and says that the jury is a bunch of low-key liberal activists, or nods for his supporters to descend upon Michael Cohen, he knows what he's doing, and those jury members know the practical effect of what he's doing. This is the insidiousness of jury intimidation, and the reason that Judge Merchan has an obligation to impose the strictest penalty on Trump possible. And that, by the way, is a point that I discussed with my Legal Breakdown co-host, Glenn Kirshner.
I think now what we're all going to be waiting for is not only what is Judge Merchan's decision with respect to holding Donald Trump in criminal contempt. I believe he will. The big ticket issue is, what will the first sanction be? The first sanction is almost certainly going to be a fine, a penalty, money sanctions. And I think they talked about 10 counts of contempt, so that would be $1,000 per count, $10,000, which of course means nothing to Donald Trump. But what I'm really going to be keeping an eye out for is, what does Judge Merchan say to Donald Trump after he finds him in contempt and sanctions him? And I sure as heck hope what he says is, next time we're going to be looking at that 30-day jail sentence possibility that is authorized under the law. So keep it up, and I will make good on my promise to jail you. That's what I'm hoping we hear from Judge Merchan. Telling Donald Trump, you are now on notice, no more $1,000 fines.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, basically him not doing that and just leaving in place the ability for him to fine him $1,000 per violation is pretty much a runway for somebody who, at least on paper, or purports to be a billionaire. I mean, it's a clear runway to just commit those violations with impunity at this point. So if it's either these $1,000 fines or 30 days in jail, then there's a major disparity between the two. And if he just opts to keep imposing these $1,000 fines, it's basically like saying, go on, you've got carte blanche to do whatever you want.
It makes a mockery of court orders, because Donald Trump will continue to violate the gag order, and what he'll be communicating to Judge Merchan is, just put it on my tab. I can do this all day long.
Right. Glenn, why do you think that Judge Merchan didn't rule right away? As of this recording, we still don't have a resolution on this issue. He reserved judgment here.
I think part of it is, he got so frustrated with Todd Blanche, the defense attorney, because he kept asking him, listen, you're taking this position that this is not a violation of the gag order. Give me some case law, something, analogous case law. It doesn't obviously have to involve a former president violating a gag order. Give me something. And Todd Blanche wouldn't answer the question. Nothing will get a judge more agitated than an attorney who won't answer the question. Because if the answer is, there is no case law that's directly on point, there is no real analogous case law, but let me find some legal principles to argue. Todd Blanche had nothing, but he wouldn't even directly answer the question. What he ultimately said is, I just think it's obvious and self-evident, and that really seemed to bother, let me use the word bother, Judge Merchan, because I think in response to that, he said, you are losing all credibility with the court, and the court means the judge. I think Judge Merchan may go back to chambers this evening, may set his clerks on trying to find any case law that is at least instructive, that's relevant on the issue of, whether these circumstances constitute criminal contempt. I believe they do. And if so, is there any guidance on the kind of sanctions that have been imposed, not just in New York? You can look to other jurisdictions for what we call persuasive authority. There's controlling authority, that would be an appellate court opinion in New York, and then there's persuasive authority. How have other judges and other jurisdictions handled loosely comparable circumstances? That is what Judge Merchan might be doing right now, digging into that kind of case law, and then maybe tomorrow he takes the bench and he says, I'm ready to render my opinion.
And of course, to see more episodes of The Legal Breakdown, where we will cover the entirety of Trump's trial in Manhattan, make sure to subscribe to this channel. So at this point, all eyes will be on Judge Merchan, who I have to believe recognizes the abject danger posed by Donald Trump's continued refusal to abide by the terms of his gag order. Trump does seem to be daring the judge to throw him into jail, so frankly, Judge Merchan should take him up on it. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.